Brad, good to see you. What's new at Estes?
Oh boy, exciting times for us. Something that just recently happened is we just repartnered with Epicor. So we're going to be working as a partner with them both on the Epicor Kinetic and the P21 side.
So you're going to be implementing P21 and Kinetic?
We are. We're going to be a value-added reseller specifically in the P21 space, and we're going to continue to be a service provider on the Epicor Kinetic side.
And what are you seeing in the market, in terms of ERP implementations and ERPs? What are you seeing in the market right now which distributors should know about?
I think definitely the sense as it relates to ERP is a preponderance of projects right now are bolt-on projects where companies are acquiring new organizations and adding them onto their organization. So in the private equity space, ERP implementation is really the great migration integration step. Once you've got common companies in a common system with common data and hopefully common processes, that does a lot to smooth out the transitions from an acquired company to part of the family.
And you talked about consolidation, which is happening in the industry. And I've seen this happen across multiple organizations, right? So there are a couple of ways this could happen in terms of how tech plays out. So let's say a company is running P21, or it could be NetSuite or another platform, it really doesn't matter. But then that company gets acquired by private equity or a bigger company. So two things could happen, right? So they let them run as its own private company and then let them grow as is, right? Or they just merge it with the operations. So when they do that, sometimes I've seen, hey, whatever, even the ERP, if it's okay, if you're on P21, NetSuite, it doesn't matter. You just come and join our ERP, and you get that data, you migrate that over. Do you see that happen more often, or what is the best practice there?
Boy, best practice is, I would say, something you need to bracket based on needs of the organization. And honestly, if you're with private equity and they have a certain timeline that they're working to, quite often that's going to drive you, regardless of what you would call best practice, by way of most successful ERP implementation. I think definitely in terms of way you might configure your system, whether you're adding that company as a separate company, if you truly have new business lines and you want to keep those separate, or if they're coming on as a branch to an existing footprint. Because in private equity, in the distribution space, organizations are trying to build a bigger footprint. So they'll buy smaller organizations, turn them into branches. In those cases, you really will miss on some of the benefits of that shared company structure if you're not merging them pretty quickly. I think amalgamation into the main company generally depends on the degree of dissimilarity. If you are a more similar company to your parent, your new parent, you're probably going to find yourself merging at a more rapid pace than if you are truly a bit of a unicorn. And in that case, you might find yourself operating independently for a longer time. And I think that makes sense.
And what's new in the ERP world? There's a lot of talk about automation, AI in ERP. So what's new in the ERP world?
Well, I think a lot of the stuff that's old that is also new. I think AI continues to be something that is brought up. I think the vendors are getting better at integrating AI within the application as a tool set to help individual users do their job better. I think there's still a space where AI working at an integration level still has some ways to go, and I think that's an evolving area with organizations as they try to use AI to integrate system to system as they go. I think data and AI have normally been thought BI, AI, right? Two-letter acronyms. I think they're starting to find themselves merging closer together, whereas the ability to get large amounts of data and then analyze them on an ongoing basis is offering some of the solutions that earlier technologies offered, but maybe with a lot more legwork.
When it comes to integration, I think customers are better off using the DC Cap integrator.
I think that's a fair argument.
So Brad, you talked about reading on managerial finance. What is that you're reading?
What I found myself, when you're trying to keep yourself growing and trying to find areas to grow, there's always the temptation just to dip into the next strategy book. And I think I like Jack Welch. He once famously said, pick a direction, then implement like hell. And that implementing like hell quite often has to do with the specific tools and tactics at a lower level, at a more tactical level. So for me, one of those pieces has been at the finance level. Being able to understand the managerial financial decisions that your customers themselves are making, I think quite often opens doors to the conversation. It's kind of a bar for entry to be able to have conversations about what is your customer's strategic goal and how are you aligning yourself as a supplier to help achieve those goals.
I like Jack Welch as well. His book Straight from the Gut helped me even start DC Cap in a way.
Oh, nice.
So I love his work, and I've followed GE and Jack Welch extensively.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice you refer to him. But then, what are some practical learnings you've got, right? So in terms of managerial finance, what can I do today to implement that?
Boy, if I'm thinking of what keys there are, is trying to understand what some are established metrics that apply across your organization and the organization that you might be working with. I think the establishment of strong industry recognizable metrics that can be used to explain yourself to another organization quickly is really helpful. And I find it's surprising how many organizations have quite often a lack of metrics in terms of the things that they use to gauge the success of their business. Still, I run into a lot of the organizations that are going by feel. And as much as I love feels, sometimes I think it's really helpful to build a couple of really solid metrics that you can use as kind of a linchpin.
Yeah, metrics are great. Metrics are very important. But sometimes, you don't really also go just with the metrics, right? Sometimes gut plays a role, right? So, hey, you know what? Okay, metrics tell me this. Mm-hmm. And then, for instance, I think, the example of Buc-ee's was great, right?
Yes, indeed.
So, hey, I have a gas station, am I going to really open a very, very big gas station? Mm-hmm. Would people come? Hey, my gut tells,
right,
it works, so I'll just do it.
Yeah, I think that it's a really good balance of the metrics that help drive how you are operating. I'm sure the fellow who started Buc-ee's, and I'm a big Buc-ee's fan. I'd love to travel to the South just for the opportunity to go there and have a pulled pork sandwich or something like that. But I think there's definitely a great sense he had, an intuition that said the market has a need and it's not being currently filled by anyone. They never would have built the iPhone if they had just gone by customer feedback, right? They had to predict, kind of intuit where that need would show. What did Henry Ford say? If he asked the customer what they want, they'd want faster horses, right? So there's definitely a sense in which, especially when it has to do with new product development, new initiatives, entrepreneurial activities, how are you predicting the space that you're going to want to fill? Getting to that space successfully, I think, is where probably some of those metrics can have a place in terms of making sure, am I not overspending? Am I doing this incrementally appropriately? Am I managing risk with reward?
Yeah, I used to be really, really bad at finance. I don't understand it so well. But then, one thing I've also realized is, it's easier and it's better to keep things simple. Right, don't spend more than what you make, right? And also build on cash. I think that really helps you in the long term. So as much as cash you can save and invest that properly, I think that'll yield great returns.
Yeah, my wife doesn't let me have any cash in my wallet. My wallet's empty right now, and probably for good reasons. So.
Thank you so much, Brad. Thanks for joining me. Great chatting with you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Karthik.
Yeah.